Star Trek Voyager's 10 biggest TNG callbacks throughout its 7 seasons. Star Trek Voyager featured several callbacks to Star Trek: The Next Generation. Less than a year after the 1994 series finale of Star Trek: The Next Generation, Star Trek Voyager promised a return to form for Star Trek television shows after Star Trek Deep Space Nine's space station setting. Like Captain Jean-Luc Picard's Patrick Stewart USS Enterprise D, Captain Catherine Janeway's Kate Mulgrew USS Voyager took viewers on episodic journeys through the final frontier, with stops along the way to explore the strange new worlds of the Delta Quadrant. To reinforce the idea of Star Trek Voyager as a worthy successor to Star Trek: The Next Generation, Voyager rarely shied away from making references to the earlier Star Trek show. From familiar concepts to series regulars, Star Trek Voyager found ways to incorporate characters from Star Trek: The Next Generation, despite being set on the other side of the galaxy. Things from the Alpha Quadrant were found in the Delta Quadrant with surprising regularity on Star Trek Voyager, which only contributed to the concept of a shared Star Trek universe and the promise of Voyager's return home. Star Trek Voyager's biggest callback to Star Trek: The Next Generation was almost a series regular who was once a TNG guest star. Robert Duncan McNeil's TNG character, Starfleet Academy cadet Nick Locarno, originated in Star Trek: The Next Generation Season 5, Episode 19, The First Duty, as leader of Wesley Crusher's Will Wheaton Nova Squadron. Locarno was originally slated to appear as a regular character in Star Trek Voyager, but would have been an expensive, irredeemable addition, so Tom Paris was created instead. Besides being played by the same actor, vestiges of Nick Locarno remain in Tom Paris, the character who actually made it to Star Trek Voyager. Both characters were pilots responsible for the deaths of crewmates whose Starfleet careers were cut short, leading to speculation that Paris was simply Locarno using a pseudonym. Star Trek Lower Decks cleared up the confusion by featuring both characters in very different circumstances. In Star Trek Voyager Season 3, Episode 17, Unity, Commander Chakotay Robert Beltran is aided by a small colony of Alpha Quadrant species, who somehow made it all the way out to the Delta Quadrant after being captured. Chakotay soon discovers that their captors were none other than the Borg, and this motley crew is still connected to one another despite recovering their identities as individuals. The members of the Borg Cooperative can trace their capture back to the Battle of Wolf 359, Starfleet's stand against the Borg Collective in Star Trek: The Next Generation Season 3 and 4 two-parter, The Best of Both Worlds. Captain Jean-Luc Picard's Patrick Stewart brief time as Locutus of Borg would go on to have a greater influence on Star Trek Voyager episodes that followed Unity. Star Trek Voyager is often praised for its unique premise of a stranded crew trying to find their way home from the Delta Quadrant. However, it would be impossible to overlook the influence Star Trek: The Next Generation (TNG) had on the series, given the shared universe, characters, and even some direct plot elements. Here are 10 of the biggest callbacks from Voyager to The Next Generation, which served as an important bridge for both fans and creators. 1. Q's return. One of the most significant TNG callbacks in Voyager is the return of the mischievous and powerful entity Q. In Voyager, Q appears multiple times, particularly in the episode Death Wish, where he introduces the character of Quinn, a fellow Q who wants to die. This is a direct reference to the numerous TNG episodes involving Q's antics, including his role as a recurring antagonist and his challenge of humanity's potential. His reappearance on Voyager ties back to the long-standing connection between the Q continuum and the Federation. 2. The Borg and assimilation. Though the Borg were introduced in Star Trek: The Next Generation, their prominence is even greater in Voyager, where they become a central plot point. The series features the shocking assimilation of Captain Janeway's shipmate, 7 of 9, an ex-Borg drone, a stark callback to TNG's The Best of Both Worlds, when Captain Picard himself was assimilated. Voyager, however, takes the exploration of the Borg even further, showing them not just as an enemy, but as a complex, evolving species. 3. Data's legacy in the Doctor. The holodeck and holographic technology first took a central role in TNG with the creation of the Emergency Medical Hologram, EMH, played by Brent Spiner's Data in a number of episodes. Voyager then expanded this concept with its own EMH portrayed by Robert Picardo. The Doctor, initially a simple program, grows into a beloved and complex character over the series, paralleling the evolution of Data, who sought to understand human emotions and experiences. The Doctor's journey towards sentience in many ways echoes Data's quest for humanity. 4. Picard's influence on Janeway. Captain Jean-Luc Picard's influence on Captain Catherine Janeway is undeniable. Both captains are known for their deep sense of duty and leadership, but Janeway often finds herself in a situation where the rules of Starfleet and the Federation are stretched. A callback to Picard's more diplomatic approach to leadership can be seen in Janeway's own character development. While Picard is a model of diplomacy, Janeway must often balance that with a more pragmatic approach to survival in the Delta Quadrant. 5. The holodeck episodes. TNG's holodeck served as a rich storytelling device, providing both comedic and dramatic episodes. In Voyager, the holodeck also features prominently, but it's used differently. The crew's desire for recreation and escape is tested, and sometimes the holodeck becomes a site of danger, as seen in episodes like Fairhaven and Spirit Folk. This is a callback to TNG's holodeck adventures, where holograms and virtual realities are often used to explore ethical questions or even act as a plot device to move the story forward. 6. The Romulans and Klingons in the Delta Quadrant. While TNG introduced viewers to the complex political relationships between the Romulans and Klingons, Voyager would occasionally reference these two powers as well. Although neither faction has a large presence in the Delta Quadrant, the mention of them and brief encounters highlight the continued importance of these species in the broader Star Trek universe. The Romulan encounter in Unimatrix Zero and the Klingon involvement in Barge of the Dead show the reach of these factions, even in the farthest corners of space. 7. The continuation of the Ferengi, who were first introduced in TNG as a foil to the Federation's ideals, make notable appearances in Voyager, expanding their role in the franchise. Quark's nephew Nog is a member of the crew in the future timeline seen in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but in Voyager, Ferengi plots become an interesting commentary on greed, trade, and culture. Their reappearance on the series speaks to their lasting relevance within the Star Trek universe. 8. The Prime Directive. The Prime Directive, one of the most significant guiding principles of the Federation, is a recurrent theme in both TNG and Voyager. While TNG often dealt with the dilemmas of non-interference in the development of civilizations, Voyager challenges the Prime Directive with even greater frequency. Janeway's position on the Prime Directive sometimes differs from Picard's, especially when it comes to survival. Episodes like Sacred Ground show how Janeway's flexible approach to the directive contrasts with Picard's more rigid interpretation. 9. Beverly Crusher's role as a mentor in Voyager. There are several instances where characters like Kez and 7 of 9 are mentored by the crew, particularly in the medical or scientific areas. This echoes the mentoring relationship between Beverly Crusher and Data or Wesley Crusher in TNG. In many ways, Voyager continues the TNG tradition of exploring personal growth and development through mentorship, particularly through the figure of the ship's doctor and its support crew. 10. The return of the Enterprise D. In a very subtle yet emotionally significant callback, Voyager features the Enterprise D in its series finale. When Janeway returns to the Alpha Quadrant, she reflects on her time and her crew's trials, alluding to the long-lasting legacy of the Starfleet officers from TNG. Additionally, in episodes like Relativity,